Hey folks, Geoff Magliacetti of Empire Sports Media and Jets X Factor coming to you to talk about the Sam Darnold trade that has no doubt shaken the metropolitan football landscape to its core. Now, this is such an interesting situation because, there's almost no use in, grading trades the second they happen because we're still months away from playing a down of NFL football. And, I tend to keep a policy of, no football predictions until the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup playoffs. And the Stanley Cup have been awarded. The Larry O'Brien Trophy and the Stanley Cup have been awarded. No football predictions until then, college, pro, or otherwise. But this is an interesting scenario for the Jets and Carolina Panthers, and I think it's a situation where both teams have ended up winning in this regard. And it's as Michael Scott would put in the penultimate episode of the season 2 of The Office, the conflict resolution one. It's a Michael Scott situation where it's a win, win, win. Because this looks like a trade where the Jets have won, the Carolina Panthers have won, and Sam Darnold has won. Because on a personal level for Sam Darnold, what he needs more than anything in his NFL career right now is stability, because he has not gotten that in New York. To put things in perspective, last season was his third in the NFL and third with the New York Jets, of course. Jets, of course, choosing him, ironically, I guess you could say, third overall in the 2018 NFL draft, the much publicized class of, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, and Lamar Jackson, who, of course, went with the last pick, and those other guys going in the top 10, of course. So what's interesting about Darnold is that, in his third season, not a single receiver from his rookie year or a single member of his offensive line remained on the Jets roster last year. Granted, he still had tight end Chris Herndon, but Herndon was nowhere near living up to the hype of the promise he displayed during his rookie season. So, it's just he needs some stability right now, and Carolina can give that to him in the sense that they have two established weapons on offense in Christian McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson. Now, McCaffrey alone, undoubtedly a top five rusher in this league. Christian McCaffrey alone provides more firepower on his own than what the Jets were able to give Darnold over 3 seasons out there. And what stinks for Sam Darnold is that we'd love to play the what if game in the NFL. Like, what if the popular one today, especially with Aaron Rodgers hosting Jeopardy, the popular one today is what if the Packers didn't kick that field goal? What if the Packers went for it on fourth down against the Buccaneers in the NFC title game? Excuse me. And but we'll never know. We will never know, unfortunately. But one of the best what if scenarios in modern NFL history, could be, what if the Jets hired anyone other than Adam Gase, to oversee the crucial developmental years of Sam Darnold? And there's plenty of time for Darnold to get his career back on track. I think one of the best examples you could say of someone who saw a lot of adversity in his NFL career, heck, still sees it in modern times, with that massive injury he suffered a couple years back, and yet he came back, is Alex Smith. And people tend to forget that Alex Smith, in the early going of his career, went through several different coordinators in San Francisco during a time where they were drastically rebuilding. And then with the help of several other homegrown talents in the Bay Area, guys like Frank Gore, Vernon Davis was another one, Michael Crabtree, among many, Patrick Willis, of course, and guys on defense, Navarro Bowman, among many, 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 many others who escape my mind right now. He was able to get his career back on track and create a very lengthy and serviceable career for himself. And that seems like something Darnold can do, and I think Carolina is a perfect spot for him in that regard because he has the firepower and Christian McCaffrey behind him, and we'll get more on running backs in a minute. And what Darnold also has is a reunion with Robbie Anderson, who was by far his favorite target with the Jets. So I feel like that's going to be another nice little match made in heaven for him. It'll be good to have, that stability back on his side, a reliable target for him to work with. But also I think Carolina's coaching also presents a unique situation for him in that they have Joe Brady, of course, on the assistant staff over there, and Matt Rule as the head coach. Now, Rule has made a bit of a living for himself, gained a bit of a reputation as a guy who can salvage some tough situations. I mean, we saw it at the college level. He took over teams in Temple and the team in Baylor that, were coming off 1, 2, 3 win seasons out there, and took them to heights that the programs rather had rarely, if ever, gotten before. So, it's good to see that he has some strong offensive minds that can help him and help develop some form of stability and some form of what's the word I'm looking for? Some form of consistency in his NFL career. Because the thing about Darnold was, I think there was a case for him to stay in New York because it was almost shocking enough that he was able to display these ever so brief flashes of brilliance in a New York uniform, and just one stretch that comes off the top of my head comes at the end of the 2018 season in his rookie year. Jets were long out of contention, but Darnold had 4 very good games coming off an injury in which he, displayed some promise. The last game was against Week 17 against New England. That one was a bit of a watch. A lot of backups playing in that game. Not much to play for in that one. But Darnold had 3 very good games prior to that, and over that 4-game stretch, he had what I believe was a 99.1 passer rating, which I believe moved up to over 100 if you remove that final New England game from the equation. And part of that was he led a come-from-behind victory against Buffalo, his first head-to-head matchup with Josh Allen. Then he basically took, and they were losses, but he took Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers to the brink in back-to-back games. That Packer game in particular was very exciting. It was a not a Christmas Eve game, but a Festivus Miracle, another classic sitcom reference in Seinfeld. It was a game that took place on December 23rd, penultimate week of the season, the last home game, and Darnold went head-to-head with Aaron Rodgers, and he put up 341 yards and 3 scores in that game. 44-38 overtime final, but it just went to show it was a game that gave Jets fans plenty of hope for the future, in that maybe this was the guy after all. And we continue to see that because in the first year of the Adam Gase era, Darnold had the mononucleosis thing, and many of the reactions to that were sophomoric, if only for the mere concept of quote unquote LOL Jets, if only for that mere concept gets clicks. But Darnold came out in his first game back with mononucleosis, and had a terrific game against the Dallas Cowboys. Just were 0-4 at the time, and he had the 92-yard bomb to Robbie Anderson, as a matter of fact. And the Jets end up winning that game and go on to win. Well, they started over 0-4, and finished 7-9, so that would be 7 wins over a 7-5 mark over his over the last 12 games there. So. It goes to show it's enough of a miracle. It's almost a miracle in of itself that Darnold was able to display these fleeting flashes of brilliance despite utter self-destruction around him elsewhere. So it's good to see he'll get some stability out there in Carolina. However, Darnold is no longer part of the Jets' path, and you're probably wondering what this has to do with the New York Jets and where they go from here. Well, first of all, I think it's really good on Joe Douglas' part, General Manager Joe Douglas, of course, that he was able to snag 3 picks from this, and one of those picks was a second rounder, because Sam Darnold, let's face it, brilliant as his flashes were able to be in a Jets uniform, did he ever display something worthy of a second round pick? Did he ever display consistency worthy of a second round pick? Probably not. But the fact that Douglas was able to swing that, in addition to 2 other day 3 picks, I felt was pretty good on his end. So, it of course pales in comparison when you remember Darnold was 3rd overall pick back in 2018, but at the same time, I think it was good that he was able to nab a second round pick out of that and basically get more weapons, which the Jets have been doing at this point. The Jets have been. It's probably not even the weaponry that the Jets need to worry about most. It's probably the offensive line that they need to work on. So I think that, and I just want to add one more note. We'll make this I think we'll make this a 2-part video, and just we'll split this up. We'll call this the Darnold piece, and then we'll move on to the next one. The I think the interesting thing about Darnold is that he enters the Carolina Panthers in a very interesting point on their timeline because you look at the NFC South. Of course, Tampa Bay didn't win it last year, but you have to think the division belongs to them for the time being. The division belongs to Tampa Bay unless someone proves otherwise, of course. You look at the New Orleans Saints, somewhat reeling from the loss of Drew Brees, but Jameis Winston is probably talented enough where the loss of Brees will not hurt New Orleans that much, at least immediately in terms of contending in 2021. Then you look at the Atlanta Falcons, who probably will not be getting more likely than not will not be getting Matt Ryan's successor. We'll go over more what the Jets are doing in part two of this. They won't be getting Matt Ryan's successor, but at number four, excuse me, because obviously more likely than not, Jacksonville's going to go number one with Trevor Lawrence, and then the Jets and 49ers, who own the third pick, will probably go quarterbacks at 2 and 3, be it Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, or the field. But I think that Carolina's in an interesting spot because one could say that they are rebuilding right now, and it goes to show that they want to do, and it goes to show that they do not trust Teddy Bridgewater to be their franchise man, because Bridgewater is another one like Alex Smith. He deserves all the respect in the world and did a fantastic job coming back from an injury, but at the same time, he wasn't consistent enough to earn Carolina's long-term starting spot in their backup situation. Isn't exactly inspiring. You have the de facto XFL MVP PJ Walker back there, some good stretch with the Houston Roughnecks earlier last year, and February to March seems like forever ago, I know, but in the XFL, and Will Greer also there. He didn't prove much during his time as a starter. So it's interesting what Carolina is trying to do because it feels like they have what I like to call 2017 Yankee syndrome, in that they are blessed with enough talent and enough youth to the point where they are able to almost, if they make the playoffs, hey, that's just an added bonus. Good for them. And, they could, and it's just a year where they could do research and development. And if they make the playoffs, good. If they don't, oh well, we're rebuilding. Because Carolina did show a ton of promise last year in the sense that they lost McCaffrey for a majority of the year. But still, I think they lost, 10, 11 games last year, and I think a good majority of those games were by one possession. So I think that it's interesting to see what Darnold's going to do there. He finally has some stability. Carolina also picked up the 5th-year option on Sam Darnold, so it's probably going to be a 2-year experiment what they're trying to do over there with him. So I'm eager to see what happens for Darnold, and I think as you look across the metropolitan landscape, a lot of Jets fans are happy for Darnold, and rightfully so. I mean, it's hard to not celebrate the fact that he finally has some gridiron stability as he makes the next step in his football career. So that'll do it for the take I have on Sam Darnold, and you can check out part 2 of this video shortly after. I know it takes some time to upload in between, but that's my thoughts on Sam Darnold personally. Now, stay tuned for the next video where I talk about how this trade will affect the Jets moving forward. Stay tuned.